speakers of today is Dixon Ruecker, and Dixon joined the data success team 5 years ago. So he's not only the BI data guru too, but he also world traveler and also the best poker player you can see. So he's a great guy that to have in our team. I'm glad that to introduce him. I'm very honored to introduce him to this presentation. So, and with that, I will just send back to you, Dixon.
Thank you, Bob. I should mention, right now, there's the World Series of Poker main event going on in Las Vegas. They decided to do it this year, like delayed. That's usually over summer. Had everyone, show their proof of vaccination, and they're down to 3 people. And I think the 4th place guy was like a local, like his only ever caches were like a Talking Stick Resort or whatever, the nearby casino. So there's a Arizonan that just made like $2.8 million or something crazy for getting fourth place. Nice. Yeah, every year that's always like that because it's such a big event with all these amateurs. So eventually some amateurs will inevitably make the final table. But yeah, I played poker before joining Bob on the analytics team, and I've been here 6 years, so a lot to talk about. Let's dive into the slides. All right, I'm a little amazed that there's anyone even here based on how poorly I marketed this session. Brandy, I think it was called Introduction to Power User, and I think that was my boss, Brandy, just kind of like having a placeholder that I would eventually change. But anyway, here we are. Hopefully you guys can get a nice overview of just what it's like to connect to data at ASU, what your options are, take this information back to your colleagues. Hopefully the recording will be useful to people in the future. I appreciate you guys joining. So today we'll go over some terminology, do a quick overview of the analytics portal and explain how it works, show you how to create your own group and why you might want one, then dive into choosing the right tool for your data project. We'll touch back on the analytics portal to talk about how to be a good power user and finish with some links to training and support channels. It's going to be a lot of me talking. I have 48 slides. I'll probably abandon them at some point and just do a demo. But feel free to go off mute, interrupt me if I'm losing you or you just have a question or comment. And hopefully Bob has the annotations enabled. If you guys haven't used Zoom annotations before, they're really fun. So try to figure out how to put a heart in the box next to your favorite logo. I'm going to have just a few interactive slides here. Nice job, Susan. Anyone need help? Bob figured it out. If you can find that little Zoom bar. Nice, I see them coming in. Who's over there trying to put it in the U of A box? I'm glad I made it small. You could also chat if you want to. That's a fine way to participate. Nice, okay, I think that's enough. So after today, I hope you'll understand why we built the analytics portal, where to begin, and how to not feel like you're on an island. That white cat key up there is actually a key to my sister's house, so hopefully none of you know how to use a 3D printer and copy it based on that image. Quick poll here, again, with the annotations, if you guys can. Just to get a feel for who I'm talking to, throw a heart, star, horseshoe, or rainbow into one of those boxes for me. And Aaron, if you can't find the annotate option, you might not be on like the Zoom app. I know the version matters, so it might just not be there for you, but it should be under, if you click more or something, you can annotate. You can also just say in chat, box 1, 2, or 3 if you want. This will definitely help me because I have a lot of kind of beginner slides, and that'll let me know if I should just like move on to different content. Looks like we do have someone in the bottom box. Okay, cool. One more poll. And don't worry if you're considering putting a stamp in that first or second box. I won't call on anyone to explain what a data warehouse is. I'm not a monster. Go ahead and throw your stamps in. Nice, Susan. I was definitely that third box for a long time. Wow, we've got some confident people in box number 1. I love it. Anyone else, box 2 or 3? All right. So I'm mostly speaking to people in that third box. This fog analogy I'm stealing from Tim Urban is kind of the best way I can describe what it feels like in my brain when I don't know that much about a topic. Sounds like you guys are pretty confident, so a lot of this will be a review for you. But I just want to get you in the right mindset for today and just in general at ASU, because data projects can be tough. So his quote, this is a guy named Tim Urban who's done a TED Talk on procrastination that's really good. He's friends with Elon Musk, and he's also friends with one of my friends. So because of him, I get to say I'm 3 steps to Elon and 6 steps to Kevin Bacon and all that jazz. But I wanted to take 45 seconds here to kind of go through this quote of his that I really liked. So he says, the way I approach a post when he's making new blog posts is I'll start with the surface of the topic and ask myself what I don't fully get. I look for those foggy spots in the story where someone mentions it or comes up in an article I'm reading. My mind kind of glazes over with a combination of ugh, it's that icky term again, not go away, like data warehouse for some people, and ew, the adults are saying that adult thing, and I'm 7, so I don't actually understand what they're talking about. Then I'll get reading about those foggy spots, but as I clear away the fog from the surface, I often find more fog underneath. So then I research that new fog, and again, I often come across other fog even further down. My perfectionism kicks in, and I end up refusing to stop going down the rabbit hole until I hit the floor. Hitting the floor is a great feeling. It makes me realize that the adults weren't actually saying anything that complicated or icky after all. And when I come across that topic again, it's fun now because I get it. I can nod with a serious face on and be like, yes, interest rates are problematic, like a real person. So thanks for bearing with me on this slide, a lot of text. But I just want to say 6 years ago, I studied finance. I had the weird poker background. I came here with no computer science, analytics, or coding. I remember what it was like. It's not that long ago, plus 2 of those years were the pandemic, so those don't even count. When someone said the words data warehouse, it was foggy for me and it didn't feel good. Not all of you are like this, but for me, it was easier to kind of put off learning about that and focus on more familiar work. I know that goes on a lot at ASU, especially as we transition to more data stuff. That's challenging. This work is not easy. I'm sure Susan can tell you just how much learning can be required if you're trying to do more advanced stuff. But yeah, you probably have an inkling that you could automate or improve some of your processes if only you had the time and energy. So if I can clear a little of that fog today so you're comfortable, that's really what I'm aiming for. 40 minutes is not long enough to cover everything. So I just wanted to take the time to make sure you understood that. And like I said, I realize there's a lot I could cover. I'm 9 slides in, we haven't really started, but normally I prefer to get right to it. Really, I'm doing this setup intentionally. I've seen so many people start a data initiative with the best intentions and then just drop it. So I really want to hammer home kind of not making sure you're not afraid and just it's a process. If you need help being convinced, there's just a few benefits I have on this slide of why it's worth it. It just doesn't have to be intimidating. And I also want to mention that we're pretty unique at ASU. Just a lot of big companies outsource their IT. So you have an opportunity to learn stuff and lean on other people that you just don't get that opportunity a lot of other places from what I've gathered. So you have people like Bob who can help you along the way. So here we go. As fun as data and tech can be, the jargon is inescapable. We even added some of our own here at ASU, but let's run through this list really quick. Again, for a lot of you, it might be a review, but we have analytics at asu.edu I'll talk about a lot today. It's just a place to find and run reports and training resources. We've got analytics groups is how content is organized. Those are security groups primarily. And then in each one of those groups, you have power users and then regular group members. So that's really just people who can write and edit versus people who just have read-only access. Portal sync, we'll talk about a little bit. That's the automated script we developed that goes out and grabs information and kind of brings it into the portal. The data warehouse is that Amazon Redshift thing, nightly copies of ASU data, user databases. If you've heard the acronym AUDB, it's just another database where power users can actually create their own content. And then Amazon Workspace is if you're directly querying that data warehouse, you'll want one of those. So you could have that secure environment with all the tools pre-installed. And then FSX, Bob and I were chatting about before this recording started. It's a file storage tool from Amazon that we're increasingly using to get data available to people. Calibra, I really want to hype up, especially with the more advanced crowd here. We want to use that data dictionary to just make it easy to discover data. And then, I don't know if you guys have kids, but I've heard this no cap a lot lately means no joke, I think. And Metaverse, your guess is as good as mine. So without that out of the way, what is analytics at asu.edu? A little history. Many of you may be familiar with my reports and dashboards.asu.edu. The technologies behind both of those were end of life. I know Bob and Kristen were trying to get those shut down for many years, Bob knows. And Kristen decided to embark on the ambitious project of building a homegrown platform that was relatively tool agnostic. Knowing that ASU is such a big place, we would eventually want to have a single point of entry where people could get data insights regardless of what tool the developer used to surface them. Hopefully you're still paying attention. And all that to say, the analytics portal is a homegrown platform for reports, dashboards, and data-related training resources, or ideally, your one-stop shop for all things data ASU. As we mature together and get better at working with data, we'll eventually have stuff like student list generators, APIs that more advanced users can connect to and build cool stuff off of, and maybe open up parts of it to the public. All stuff we're thinking about. For now, though, if you notice the second question here, it's just all faculty, staff, and student workers can get in there. We can also make it available to kind of affiliates. We hit some permission snags with them, but if you have an audience, just let us know. We'll try to get them access to stuff in the portal. But you can share direct links to any URL that's analytics.asu.edu. They would just have to authenticate when they go to the link. And we'll talk a little bit more about feedback later. We'll talk a little bit about workspaces, but really to access any of this, it's just all you need is a web browser. I'm sure some of you know that already. And yeah, the big reason here in the middle, why do we need an analytics portal? It's really easy when you're just trying to get one report out to your boss or something to kind of lose sight of the bigger picture that people also need reports from other groups. So that's a big kind of point I want to emphasize in a Power User 101 type class like this. Try to think a little bit bigger beyond your direct need and understand that that's a lot of the value of the portal is meeting all those reporting needs. Collaboration is ultimately what it's about. And then this last question here, one of my favorite things in 6 years is just seeing how kind of prolific some of our power users can be without having a coding background. So, there's going to be a lot of tools that you can use that it could just be Excel, throwing something together in Excel and getting it shared out via one of those groups is a fine solution in a lot of cases. So if you're not familiar with the homepage, this is what it currently looks like. We got a lot of feedback at last year's data conference that it desperately needed a better getting started button that would help people understand how to find stuff. So that button used to just take you to a page that was intended for early power users when we first launched this back in 2019. It was very much a minimum viable product back then. It still is in many ways, but I'm happy to announce that as of a few days ago, this blue button now takes you to a slightly less crappy overview page that I threw together out of desperation and to avoid the shame of going a full year without improving it. Trust me that both this page and navigation in general will get better over time, especially over this next year. We tapped into some great UX design talent here at UTO, and we hired a guy named Alexander Persky, who's kind of helping us work through some technical debt. The future is bright for the portal. I can say that with utmost confidence. And personally, I'll be turning out some of these like quick 5-minute videos, hopefully generating a lot of stuff for you guys that's easily digestible and you can share with your coworkers and stuff. That video I recommend if you're brand new, or if you know someone who's brand new, just have them watch that and it'll help understand how content is organized. But I just assume with this audience, you guys already kind of know this stuff. Please stop me if you don't know what an analytics group is, though. So digging in a little bit more, the behind the scenes stuff that power users need to know. I included this slide in part to help explain what a data warehouse is to that one person who stamped the bottom box. But it's also just to explain that analytics portal, how stuff flows through into there. But the idea here is end users don't have to worry about all the garbage kind of in the middle. They just see the analytics portal at the end and they get the reports and they're on their way. Increasingly, some power users may not even need to worry about the data warehouse as we kind of make more data sets available just via things like our dash data sets, if you've heard that word, or just CSV files out on FSX that you can connect to just straight from your desktop. So if that data warehouse term is foggy for you, think of it just as primarily a place where nightly copies of data are made from production systems like PeopleSoft and Workday. That way we can build reports and query against it to our heart's content without bringing down PeopleSoft. It also helps when data is under one virtual roof, since you only have to connect to that one database to mash up data from different production systems. So hopefully that helps a bit. And I'm really a fan of, you don't really have to know this nuance right now, but the way that permissions are designed in Redshift is pretty nice. Everything's just grouped by you getting access to a particular schema. The schema has all the tables in it that you need. And Bob and I have helped out a ton with trying to make it smooth for you guys. So if you ever have feedback on access stuff, just let us know. We'll try to make it better. Any questions about this? It's very simplified, since I personally don't like looking at really complex like flows like this. I try to make it like as basic as possible, but hopefully this helps. Most power users will definitely end up getting familiar with connecting to Redshift and kind of choosing one of these tools to work with. So I just wanted to give you a quick look at it. So diving a bit more into that bottom half from the previous slide, my teammate Grant helped create an automated script that runs every 30 minutes. Used to be 3 hours, we sped it up to pull in information about the reports from each of these 3 source systems into the portal. And eventually we'll have Alteryx workflows and stuff, I'm sure, get pulled in so people can run those on demand. But for now, it's just these 3. Again, end users don't really need to know about this, but as a power user, you definitely want to, because you'll see when you publish something, your job isn't quite done. You'll want to make sure it's visible to your end users in the analytics portal. And I would definitely recommend bookmarking these if you haven't already. Even if you don't use them right now, it's nice to just have all 3 source systems, as we call them, in a little bookmarks folder. I definitely pop around to these all the time as a power user. You have Tableau server, report server for your report builder stuff, and SharePoint we still use for Excel and CSV files and all of that. And then you can see, if you're curious about the sync schedule, we've got that there at the bottom. One key to understanding the portal and the sync is that the portal is just a window into reporting servers. So that's all it's doing. Just, you may be familiar with this look and feel already. You guys wouldn't see the revision, or I think you would see revisions. I don't know if you guys get to see that history, but we do as admins. So it's just an iframe here. So you've got, once your content syncs, you get a report page generated for you. In this case, it's in this Power User Lounge group. And you're just seeing Tableau here through an iframe. That's all it's doing. And because it's Tableau and because there's a board, it's a separate server that you have to sign into. You'll see that blue sign in button occasionally, but that's a problem will eventually resolve, so you don't have to worry about that, or your users don't have to worry about the double sign in. But just know that when you publish a dashboard to Tableau server, the portal sync will work its magic. Every 30 minutes, it'll generate this page for you, and then you can make that visible by going into this little edit button as a power user. So your end users don't see any of this stuff up here. They just see the page. Any questions on this? I know it can for sure be confusing when you're first starting out, but we're working on simplifying it for sure. If you want your own group, it's really a two-step process. Just have an audience and a purpose in mind, and then memorize this URL. So the ASU servicenow.com/SP?ID ? No, just ask us for the link. Or if you're familiar with the service catalog, my ASU service tab, service catalog, search for analytics, you'll see basically all of our tickets there. And the form is pretty straightforward. We gave you like blue bubbles describing everything. I got a check mark from Paul that may have been an errant annotation, but I'll take it as yes, he knows what the form is and it's so easy to use. As evidenced by a decent chunk of our groups not having any content, I promise I'm not salty about that. You don't even need to have a report ready when you request a group. If anything, I would recommend just as soon as you have an idea for an audience and a reporting initiative, just put in a request and get your group made. It takes like a week to turn these around sometimes, a week or two at the longest. And you may as well just get the request in, and we can always just delete the group later or repurpose it if you end up not needing it. So no worries about that. And step 0 here is, just try to check to see if there's an existing group in your department that you could use. It might just help consolidate things, so there are fewer groups floating around. But we've always said, if you ever need a group, just ask for one. It's not a big deal. I could unfortunately do, and I'm sure Bob could too, a whole presentation on permissions management. There's a lot of nuance for us to deal with, but I just wanted to quickly share that I like that I'm seeing more groups being open to wider audiences by default. So I think we have 9 or 10 now that are just open to anyone with student access. And that's nice because that's like 2,000 people. And that just means it's fewer access requests for all those people, right? It's a nice experience for the end users. Permissions are at the group level. We try not to get down to the report level and really complicate things. There are things you can do at the report level, but we definitely recommend asking for our help on stuff like that before you go down that road, so we can try to convince you not to. But there are definitely reasons why you would want to lock things down at the report level, but that's another presentation probably. So if someone's new to ASU and all they have to do is fill out like one reporting data access request for student data, and that gets them access to a whole bunch of groups and basically everything they need to do their job. That's what we hope to work toward. Longer term, we hope to even just have all that be ready for them when they're onboarding automatically. We'll get there someday for sure. But yeah, the groups at their core allow us to automatically remove people when they leave ASU. So you're not like hard coding email addresses in report subscriptions and sending ASU data to people who don't work here anymore. So that's one of the big reasons we have them. And this is what the process looks like for just your standard group that doesn't have any fancy permissions. They're putting in a viewer request and they get supervisor approval, group owner approval. That can be whoever you want. And then it's a pretty quick turnaround. So nothing fancy there.
So we have the question from Susan. How can I see what group I am in?
That's a great question. Hold on. I wanted to pull up the Power User Lounge. Anyway, even if you don't have access to this right now, like I try to automatically add people whenever there's a new power user, we have a workflow that alerts us and we add them. But if you don't have access and you're not a power user, just throw in an access request. When you go to this page, I'll drop it in the Zoom chat. You'll be prompted to request access and we'll add you. There's nothing really sensitive in here. It's we just want it to feel exclusive, but there's an access check dashboard that is great for this. And here's that sign into ABOR BI button. You can actually make a one-click experience if you have to remember what site you're signing into. So not too bad of a sign-in process here. But I'm working on improving this slowly over time. It's really just like insert an ASU right and then see what groups you have access to. So most of my emphasis was on the database stuff. So this isn't perfect yet. It's a little messy. But yeah, you can just put in your ASU right here. And yeah, Kristen's got another good report to use.
Yeah, that will show you not only your analytics access, but it would show you Workday and PeopleSoft as well. Yeah,
and I want to just clean this up because like if you have student records access, like you're in this SR group that looks kind of cryptic, I want to be able to show, look at all these groups that you have just because of that. So the granularity of this probably needs to change to be more group focused than service focused. But thank you for that question. So choosing the right tool. We've got our group set up, hopefully. You have all the access stuff figured out. I know that's a whole conversation, but after all that, the most common question we get is which tool should I use? I know what it feels like to look at slides like this, if you're new especially. I still don't understand how tech people think it's like okay to put these in presentations. It doesn't help that some of these aren't even reporting tools, just to add to the complexity, but we've got Tableau, Alteryx, Excel, SSRS, SSAS, dbeaver, Hyperion Studio, Power BI. It's kind of a lot to choose from and a lot of jargon. We know that it's daunting when you're first starting out, and we don't expect, most of our content creators just aren't gonna even want to aspire to learn everything. Like you could go build a whole career on this stuff, obviously, and not everyone has, like you're wearing other hats, of course. So we know that, and it's tough to get to that point where you just innately know what tool to use. I would say 6 years in, I'm for sure close to that point where I just know the pros and cons of these things. But again, my job title is going to be different than yours. Tap into that expertise for sure. Just spending 30 minutes or so to an hour via Zoom in a consultation really goes a long way. So we don't want it to be scary, but we do have a lot. We've tried to make kind of decision trees. Kristen's done good work on this to like build a quiz that tries to help you arrive at what tool to use. So we will get those resources out there. But for now, consultations, Slack messages, it really does depend on what your goal is and what data you're working with to an extent, especially the size of the data. So we can definitely help with stuff like that. This poll to make sure you're still awake and able to use that annotation feature. Let me know what you guys are working on or want to work on. This kind of helps with the tool conversation a little bit. Yeah, go ahead and select multiple if you want. The first one is what I've seen the most, like how many incoming freshmen are signed up for orientation, what's our current enrollment. And then, second one, like what's our current enrollment compared to this time last year? How has the pandemic affected our program? Number three, I see this for my own team a lot. I've tried to work on a lot of this stuff where customers were complaining about access requests taking too long. So we tried to figure out what part of the process are they getting stuck on, and you could just prove that with data pretty easily. And then, can we set up an alert to see when people are getting stuck? Number four, fortunately, is not my life, but it looks like it is one of your lives. I'm sorry for that. I know that does happen at ASU. Number five, I think we could do more of. I see it happen on big projects, but it's good to see some check marks there. And then a little bit of predictive modeling from our data innovation team. Yep, automation for sure. I was going to write down here stress relief. And we'll get into that in the next slide. Just when there's like a bad process that you know is bad and it's just quietly eating away at you, you can build a data thing and then just have that be all sunshine and rainbows after that, because it's just out of your mind. So getting into some stories, I find this helps a lot in consultations, just letting people know like what I've built, what other people have built, so you kind of get a gist of what the tools can do, and it just helps people decide what route they want to go. So this is one I wanted to share. We had data trustees and analytics group approvers who, once they left ASU, we wouldn't find out about it until the access requests were getting stuck on them. Not good, obviously. We didn't really have a process to prevent this. We were totally reactionary. For a while, we didn't even know that the requests were getting stuck. Once I started seeing the ones that were getting stuck, I couldn't unsee that, right? So I kind of occupied a small part of my brain. I had this looming feeling that we had a bad process out there and we weren't in control of it. I'm sure some of you can relate to that. So I'm not really solving world hunger with this alert, but I wanted to share that it was like an hour or two that I invested, and this will pay dividends like for many years to come with our group. It's just out there running daily or weekly. I think I said this one too. And it's just a really nice feeling to be able to build something like this. And as soon as you do, it kind of opens up your eyes to like different opportunities that are similar, as we'll see here with the next slide.
We have one question coming in, Dixon.
Good question.
Access to analytics the same as access to PeopleSoft?
Yeah, so we do have there's one group, the enrollment and records group, I think a couple groups now, who were super smart. Jennifer Hornsby, I think, orchestrated it where if you have access to PeopleSoft student pages, Bob actually is part of the process that gets you added to that group, right?
Is it automatically synced daily?
Yeah, so we do have a couple groups like that, but otherwise, no. It's just based on getting access to like these individual groups, or if you get access to student data in the data warehouse, that's where you get those like 9 groups that I showed. But thank you for the question. Bob and I are definitely and Kristen are definitely the right people to ask about stuff like that. So next one, very similar. I used Alteryx for this as well. We knew our power users were getting dropped from their workspaces when their department IDs would change, but we didn't really know when, why, or how frequently. Oftentimes this would be just a minor reorg where their job didn't change at all, and it would be quite disruptive. I'm guessing some of you here have had to deal with that fallout before. If so, I'm sorry. The problem was intermittent and messy, and because of that, it was easy to ignore. We had the data though, so it was fairly straightforward to just build a workflow and notify our team early in the morning if someone is dropped. So completely changes the experience for people, right? Like now they typically get an email before they even find out that they lost access, where before they were telling us, hey, why is my workspace not working? That sort of thing. Yeah, so Eunice, that's probably due to that process that we talked about with Bob. You will have some groups that you'll have access to by default just because of PeopleSoft. So we're trying to make it easy for you. I think that's evidence that we are, hopefully.
So it would be enrollment and record.
Yeah.
That would be the best one.
Yeah, and that enrollment and records group is for sure the most popular. A ton of good reports in there, and it'll get better over time. So as I've already plugged, our team offers one-on-one consultations that you can request through our support dropdown. I can show you that later if you haven't seen it before. And
we have 4 minutes.
Oh, just 4 minutes?
Yes.
Going to 11:15. Wow. So I made this viz to just kind of show when these consultations were like taking us too long to respond to people. So in this case, it'd be like really useful for a dashboard that our boss can just look at a few times a year, put up in our team meetings and stuff. But the key takeaway here is there's a data set underlying this that I made with Alteryx that also ended up getting used to create like an alert, an email or Slack alert. So if you're unsure of what to use, like Alteryx is a great place to start. Even if you don't end up visualizing stuff in Tableau, it's just nice to have that data set. It can tell you a lot of things just right in Excel. So we do end up recommending that a lot. But in general, I would say just ask for guidance. We have a lot of tools. And the important part is just learning how to work with data. You'll pick that up no matter what route you choose. So all these arrows over here really kind of point in the same direction. But yeah, if any of you are familiar with the weird little underpants gnomes from South Park, I think the question mark for a lot of stuff, I love to tell people about Alteryx because it's really fun to use. I wanted to do a demo. If you guys don't mind sticking around, we can kind of extend this. I could also try wrapping up. There's plenty of other stuff I want to talk about. But any questions first off? I could go on for like 2 hours with this stuff. I love talking about all the different tools and showing off what they can do. Maybe you could do like a check mark on the left side of the screen if you want me to demo, and a one on the right side of the screen if you want me to just wrap up. All right, I'm gonna absolutely fly through this. So if I don't mean for this to be intimidating at all, just know that you can always watch the recording later, and this is just meant to be really fast showing things off. Data set I'm gonna work with is just one row per faculty, staff, affiliate. So we're looking at 65,000 rows here. It's nice when you have data set made already, you can do a lot of stuff really fast. It's also nice when you just have things that you already built, but I'm just gonna start from scratch. So I'm connecting to a table. It's a really basic table. Like I said, one row per faculty and staff and affiliates. And I'm adding a data set. This is a tool called Report Builder. I'm going to start off with here. And this is the most complicated SQL that we'll need to know. That's not, if you ever need help with something this basic, there are probably 50 people that can help. But I'm just picking all the columns from this table. And this could also be like a Redshift data warehouse table. I'm just using one of those Aurora user database tables, and I'm gonna insert a table. And we have training documents on all these tools, so you can experiment in them. I'm gonna add some ASU rights, first name, last name, email address. So this is just gonna be a list, one row per employee, and I'll go ahead and throw like their department on there. And boom, I made a report. So I can save that out. And again, I'm going super fast, but just showing you what it's like to go through the motions once you're a little more comfortable. And boom, I just saved it to the report server. So when the sync does its job, it actually will end up here. So I just saved it to this UTO analytics team. It's just our internal teams group, but you may have a group for your department. You can go to the reports tab, and this after the sync runs, like this one uploaded at 10:20 a.m. today. It's very similar to what I just created. All it's doing is selecting against that table those 65,000 rows, and it's going to pull back one row per person who actively works at ASU. That data set I just made in Alteryx. It wasn't too crazy. This bottom part, I wanted to bring in the department hierarchy information. So I actually have the department ID plus like every department ID that it rolls up to. So that's what made it look a little more complicated here. Otherwise, I'm just pulling from one HR table that's already available in Redshift and kind of simplifying it so I get one row per person. In situations where people have multiple jobs, I just wanted to keep it simple. But here you go, pretty basic. And then you can have your people export to Excel with a couple clicks, and they just get their nice little Excel file with 65,000 rows that they can go off and do cool stuff with. Or they could work straight in Excel, which I also wanted to show off. And this is what Kristen and Bob did a session on this morning, a tool called Power Query. I'm not going to go through the entire thing, but just want to show that I can connect to that same data set right in Excel from my desktop. I don't even have to go into a workspace and get that one row per person and make a pivot table off of it. Again, just because of time, I'm not going to demo it fully, but I already have this built here. you can kind of see the high level counts of all the different department level 2s. You know, if you dig into UTO, you can see me right here and Bob. And then all I have to do from that is go into SharePoint, one of those source systems we have. Here's my export that just finished from Report Builder. And I just dragged and dropped it into here, and that's synced again to the analytics portal right here in this reports tab. So before this session, I created 3 little reports here, one in each tool. And you can say they all 3 synced here. So if I wanted to share this Excel file with my boss, for example, all I have to do, go into the edit tab, scroll down, change the visibility setting to group members. Eventually, we'll just have 2 settings here to really simplify it for you guys. And boom, now this is available to my group members. I can share this URL with them if I want, and they can just go straight to it. They can also download this file and just run it straight from their desktop. There's a little bit of setup involved with that, but there's just a lot of options to get data in the hands of your people. So if I had one piece of advice as we run out of time here, to just really have you be a good power user by my definition, I would say, as I hop back over to the slides, there are just a few things. So building out your landing page is a big one. And just, I like to share this example from the College of Health Solutions. So not a lot of HTML going on here. This gray area with the request access button is already kind of configured for you. You can just change the message if you want. You don't have to put in a custom message, but just explaining what your group is about is so nice for people, so they can just at a glance, when they land on your page, know what they're getting themselves into before they request access. And you don't have to build custom navigation, but like the enrollment and records group, some of you may be familiar with this. Again, not a lot of HTML, right? They just went in and used the WYSIWYG tool to create a quick page that directs people to all their content. They have a ton of reports, so I would recommend that you do this if you have a ton of content. If you just have a few, just use the reports tab like I was showing you before. Like you can just send your people straight to that reports tab and they'll be fine. But I want to emphasize that this portal will get better. It was minimum viable when we launched it. We hired Alexander, like I mentioned. We're getting feedback from you guys. It's going to get better over time. So just let us know if you think something's clunky or don't really understand something. Reach out to us for sure. But going back to that list, I for sure would advertise contact info. Add a little technical info. I would prioritize the high-level end-user stuff rather than the sharing all the SQL for all your reports. Don't worry about stuff like that until the end. And definitely document internally, I would say obsessively. It took me a long time to learn that. So occasionally archive stuff that's collecting dust that definitely helps your teammates and future people that work for your department. And then just try to keep up the momentum. We've seen so many, like I said, people have all the best intentions and then not kind of get to the finish line. I've definitely had data projects I haven't finished, and I just encourage you to keep trying. Whatever it takes, carving out time, blocking out time so you're not in meetings, so you can actually focus on deep work is really what data projects are about. So it's hard to work on this stuff like for just 30 minutes every 3 weeks. That usually doesn't work out. So any questions? I have some pro tips, but it's kind of a lot. So I think I'll just send you the slide deck and you can read through this. Documentation, creating feedback loops.
They can go to our training catalog and then.
Yeah,
that's
I
not
have
a
it.
catalog for that. So
I'll end on that. We can plug. So support dropdown, training catalog. This is all Kristen, Paul, Todd Kemper. All of our slides and videos will be here. This is an awesome tool, and it's only going to get better. So if you're ever unsure where to go next, this is it. But we love doing consultations. Bob's amazing. He does a bunch of them. I'm always willing to help out. People on our Slack channels are willing to help out. So If you or anyone you know are struggling, just know that there are tons of resources, and here are all of them.
All right,
Thank you,
so
Dixon.
thank you, Dixon. So I don't think we have any question here on the chat. I was gonna wrap it up. Thank you, our presenter Dixon Ruecker again. So with that, I will say thank you for coming and have a great day.